All right, we are jumping straight into a completely fascinating historical mystery today for this explainer. It's a story that bridges a freezing, incredibly tragic night in 1959 with cutting-edge aerospace technology in the 21st century. We're going to examine what I call the ultimate technology paradox. How is it actually possible that making a machine undeniably smarter and vastly more capable can sometimes make it far more deadly?
To really understand this, let's set the scene in Clear Lake, Iowa, at the legendary Surf Ballroom. So, originally opened in 1933, the venue tragically burned down in 1947, but they rebuilt it the very next year. And the owners did something absolutely brilliant. They designed the whole place with a South Sea Island theme. Just imagine walking in from the brutal, freezing Iowa winter. The walls have these gorgeous murals of ocean waves, there's bamboo and rattan furniture everywhere, fake palm trees on the stage, and even clouds painted on the ceiling so it feels like you're dancing outdoors by the ocean. Fast forward to the night of February 2nd, 1959. The Winter Dance Party Tour is playing its final concert here. Inside, it's a packed, sweaty, tropical paradise full of rock and roll fans. But outside, it is a deadly, freezing, pitch-black winter night.
And that freezing night outside set the stage for one of the most infamous moments in music history. February 3rd, 1959, at exactly 12:55 a.m. We all know this today as the day the music died. Right after their amazing show at the Surf, rock and roll pioneers Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and J.P. the Big Bopper Richardson headed over to the nearby Mason City Airport. They chartered a small, light aircraft to escape those freezing bus rides and just get to their next gig in Minnesota. But shortly after takeoff, flying right into those brutal winter conditions in the dead of night, the plane crashed, tragically killing everyone aboard. This single event perfectly establishes a grim reality of the 20th century. The extremely high-stakes vulnerability of flying in light aircraft, especially when weather conditions take a turn for the worse.
Okay, so let's dive into this, because the aviation industry did not just sit back and accept these vulnerabilities. No way. They spent the next several decades trying to engineer a foolproof solution, and that ultimate solution was the glass cockpit. A glass cockpit takes all those complex mechanical dials and entirely replaces them with electronic primary flight displays. Think of them as glowing supercomputer screens sitting right in the dashboard, seamlessly integrating aircraft control, autopilot, communication, and navigation systems all into one central hub. The whole goal was to give the pilot vastly better information to prevent exactly the kind of spatial disorientation and tragedy that happened back in 1959.
Now you might be wondering, how did we get here? This advanced technology didn't just magically appear overnight. It really trickled down from the absolute top of the aerospace industry. Back in 1974, NASA first tested a glass cockpit in a specially equipped Boeing 737, really just trying to figure out how to reduce crew tasks in these massive, complex commercial jets. Then, jumping to the 1990s, NASA spearheaded the AGAT consortium. Their specific mission was to take that million-dollar commercial airline technology and adapt it so it could actually be affordable and usable in small general aviation planes. Finally, the big breakthrough came in 2003, when Cirrus Design made history by introducing these electronic primary flight displays as standard equipment in their certified light aircraft. Suddenly, a private pilot flying a small single-engine plane had access to the exact same integrated flight management systems as a commercial airline captain. A total game-changer.
And as you'll see here, the sheer visual contrast is just massive. On the left, you've got your conventional analog cockpit. Pilots often call this the six-pack of mechanical round dials. These bad boys rely on physical gyroscopes, air pressure, and vacuum pumps just to physically display your airspeed, altitude, and heading. Now look at the right side, the modern digital primary flight display, or PFD. Those old mechanical dials are entirely gone, replaced by these bright, colorful computer screens displaying a wealth of data. I mean, it looks safer, it feels incredibly advanced, and for sure, the entire industry fully expected it to completely revolutionize light aircraft safety.
But here's the real question. Did putting supercomputers into the dashboards of small planes actually prevent crashes? Well, to answer that, the National Transportation Safety Board conducted a massive, comprehensive safety study looking at data from 2002 to 2008. They zeroed in specifically on the introduction of glass cockpit avionics into light aircraft. And their methodology was simple but extremely powerful. They just compared the accident records of brand new single-engine planes equipped with these shiny new glass cockpits against the exact same age and type of planes flying with those old conventional analog dials.
But when the NTSB actually crunched the numbers, they found something deeply, deeply counterintuitive. On the one hand, airplanes with glass cockpits actually had a lower total accident rate. Okay, that's good, right? That means overall they were getting into fewer minor scrapes. But surprisingly, when these glass cockpit planes did crash, the fatal accident rate was actually higher than the planes with the old-school analog dials. Think about that for a second. The state-of-the-art safety technology was actively associated with a higher rate of deadly crashes.
And the data revealed a totally baffling mystery. You might initially assume, like I did, that the people crashing these high-tech planes were just rookies, right? Maybe inexperienced pilots who bought a fancy new plane they just couldn't handle. But the NTSB data showed the exact opposite. The pilots involved in glass cockpit accidents actually held higher levels of pilot certification on average. And not only that, they had more total flight experience than the pilots crashing the conventional aircraft. We are literally talking about highly trained, highly experienced pilots using the absolute best technology available and still suffering worse, far more fatal outcomes. So to unravel this whole paradox, we really have to look closely at human behavior. In the real world, conventional analog planes were mostly being used for instructional flights, shorter durations, often flying in decent weather, and crucially, usually with two pilots in the cockpit, a student and an experienced instructor right there next to them. But these advanced glass cockpit planes, they were being used completely differently. They were being used for personal and business travel. They were flying much longer flights, they were much more likely to be flown by a single pilot, and they were frequently flying under instrument flight rules. That means the pilot was intentionally flying into clouds, rain, and zero visibility, relying entirely on those computer screens to survive. Basically, the technology made pilots feel so safe and so capable that it actively encouraged them to take on significantly riskier missions. Which leads us directly to a core psychological issue here. Increased information places greater demands on pilot attention. It's a classic double-edged sword. Yes, a glass cockpit gives you GPS moving maps, live weather overlays, complex autopilot menus, and terrain warnings. It's the whole shebang. But all of that data is crammed into a very, very small visual space. The sheer volume of information on these multifunction displays can rapidly overload a single pilot. If something goes wrong, say a sensor randomly fails or the software glitches, the pilot has to quickly diagnose a highly complex computer failure while single-handedly flying a plane through bad weather. The NTSB found that this intense cognitive overload could cause pilots to easily misinterpret system failures, leading to catastrophic loss of control. And making all of this so much worse was a massive institutional blind spot. The regulatory training simply did not keep up with the rapid introduction of these complex systems. At the time of the study, the FAA lacked any equipment-specific training requirements for these new electronic screens. Actually, scratch that, even the standard written knowledge test that pilots took to get certified didn't even assess their knowledge of glass cockpit functionality. So how on earth were pilots learning to use these flying supercomputers? Well, they had to rely heavily on quick, informal training provided by the manufacturer when they bought the plane. Or worse, they were completely self-taught. Imagine trying to figure out software menus and digital logic while literally thousands of feet up in the air. Their thousands of hours of experience with old mechanical dials just didn't translate to safely managing these complex software systems.
This brings us right to the NTSB's core conclusion, and I quote, "Advanced avionics and electronic displays can increase the safety potential, but more effort is needed to ensure that pilots are prepared to realize that potential." It's such a powerful, sobering reminder that technology, no matter how shiny, colorful, or ridiculously advanced, is really only as good as the human being trained to use it. The hardware and software in these glass cockpits worked exactly as designed, but the human operating system, our training, our psychology, and our ability to assess risk had been left completely behind.
Which leaves us with a pretty massive, lingering question to wrap up this explainer. Are we upgrading our technology faster than we can upgrade ourselves? The story of the glass cockpit proves that when we hand people magical new tools, they naturally push the boundaries and step into completely new types of danger. From that freezing night at the surf ballroom to the glowing digital cockpits of today, the pursuit of safety remains an endless dance between human ambition and human limitation. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer.